The massive white ship moved slowly through the dark space between stars like a gentle giant caring for wounded children. The UHMS Healing Dawn stretched for 3 kilometers from front to back and carried the hopes of thousands of beings who needed medical help during the worst war the galaxy had ever seen. Red crosses and medical symbols covered every surface of the ship so that anyone who saw it would know this was a place of healing and not fighting. Dr. Hyunwoo Park stood in the main medical bay watching his team work on patients from dozens of different alien species. Some had blue skin and 4 arms, while others looked like walking trees with silver bark. The war had been going on for 3 years now, and the Healing Dawn had saved more than 50,000 lives during that time. Hyunwoo felt proud that his ship treated everyone the same, whether they were human soldiers or enemy aliens who had been captured in battle. Captain Yoon Seo Kim walked through the corridors, checking on different sections of her ship. She had been commanding hospital ships for 15 years and knew that staying neutral in wartime was harder than most people thought. Every day she received messages from military commanders asking her to treat their wounded first or to refuse help. To enemy soldiers, every day she said no because the medical laws of space were clear about helping anyone who needed it. In Surgery Room 12, Dr. So-Jin Lee worked carefully to repair the damaged heart of a young Vorthan refugee. The Vorthans were not even part of the war, but their planet had been attacked anyway, and thousands of them were now homeless and hurt. So-Jin had been working for 18 hours straight, but she would not stop until every patient was safe. Next to her, Dr. Tae-min Choi prepared special medicines that would work on alien biology, since most human drugs could kill other species instead of helping them. The Healing Dawn was in the Kepler sector, which was supposed to be neutral space where no fighting was allowed. Captain Kim had requested permission to enter this area 3 days ago and received approval from all the major powers, including the Zephyrian Empire. The Empire was the main enemy in this war, and they were known for being very strict about following military rules even when they were losing battles. Down in Medical Bay 7, Dr. Jinho Nam was performing brain surgery on a Zephyrian prisoner of war who had been brought to the ship after a battle near the Centauri system. The alien soldier had been unconscious for 6 days and would die without immediate help. Jin-ho had spent 12 years learning how to operate on different alien brain types, and this particular surgery was one of the most difficult he had ever attempted. His hands moved with perfect control as he repaired damaged nerve connections that were thinner than human hair. The Zephyrian soldier was named Vextal, and he was only 19 years old in human years. His military file said he had been forced to join the Empire Army when his home planet was conquered 2 years ago. Jinho did not care about politics or sides in the war because he believed every life had value and every person deserved a chance to live. As he worked on the young alien brain, he thought about his own son, who was about the same age and serving on a human military ship somewhere in the outer systems. Captain Kim received a communication signal from an unknown source and went to the bridge to respond. The main screen showed empty space, but her sensors indicated several large objects moving toward them from different directions. She ordered her communication officer to send out the standard medical ship identification signal, which should make any military vessels stay away from them. The signal included their medical certification numbers and a complete list of all patients currently being treated on the ship. In the engine room, Chief Engineer Woo Sung-han monitored the power systems that kept the medical equipment running. The Healing Dawn needed enormous amounts of energy to operate its advanced medical machines and life support systems for so many different alien species. Each species needed different air mixtures and temperatures to survive, so the ship was divided into hundreds of specialized sections. Woo Sung had been working on hospital ships for 20 years and knew that keeping everyone alive was much harder than most people realized. Dr. Young-mi Kim worked in the trauma center treating a group of human soldiers who had been rescued from a destroyed transport ship 3 days ago. One of them was barely 18 years old and kept asking for his mother while she tried to repair his damaged spine. Young-mi had seen too much suffering during this war and sometimes wondered if the galaxy would ever find peace again. She believed that places like the Healing Dawn were the only hope for showing that different species could work together instead of fighting. The unknown objects on the sensors turned out to be 12 Zephyrian warships moving in attack formation toward the medical ship. Captain Kim felt confused because the Empire had specifically given permission for the Healing Dawn to be in this area, and attacking a hospital ship would break every law of space warfare that had been agreed upon by all civilized planets. She immediately sent emergency messages to the Zephyrian fleet commander explaining that this was a protected medical vessel. Admiral Kextar commanded the Zephyrian 7th Fleet from his flagship, the Dark Victory. He had received orders from the Empire High Command to destroy any human ships found in the sector regardless of their purpose. The Admiral believed that showing mercy to enemies was a sign of weakness, and that the war could only be won by making humans afraid to leave their home planets. When his communication officer told him about the medical ship messages, he ordered them to be ignored. Dr. Jin-Ho Nam was just finishing the brain surgery on the young Zephyrian soldier when alarms started, ringing throughout the ship. The patient's vital signs were stable, and the operation had been successful, but now Jin-Ho could hear weapons charging up outside the hull. He looked down at Vextal, who was beginning to wake up from the anesthesia, and realized that this young alien might be about to die anyway, along with everyone else on the medical ship. Captain Kim made one final attempt to contact the Zephyrian fleet and broadcast a message on all emergency frequencies explaining that destroying a hospital ship would be considered a war crime by every civilized government in the galaxy. She provided complete documentation showing that the Healing Dawn was properly registered as a medical vessel and was currently treating wounded from both sides of the conflict, including Zephyrian prisoners of war. Admiral Kextar listened to the human captain pleading for her ship, and felt only satisfaction that the humans were finally going to pay for their interference in Empire business. He had lost many good soldiers to human medical ships that healed enemy wounded and sent them back to fight again. In his opinion, every human ship was a legitimate target regardless of what symbols it carried or what its supposed mission might be. The first energy blast hit the Healing Dawn near the front medical bays, killing 300 patients and doctors instantly. The ship's massive structure began to break apart as more weapons fired into the hull. Emergency systems activated and started launching escape pods, but most of them were destroyed by the attacking ships before they could get to safety. Dr. Hyunwoo Park was killed while trying to evacuate his patients, and Captain Kim died at her post still trying to surrender. Dr. Jin-Ho Nam managed to get the young Zephyrian soldier into an escape pod along with 12 other survivors before their section of the ship exploded. As the pod drifted away from the burning wreckage, he watched through the small window as the place where he had spent 5 years saving lives turned into scattered pieces of metal floating in space. The alien soldier was crying and asking what had happened to the people who had just saved his life. Only 127 people survived out of the 3,000 who had been aboard the Healing Dawn. Jin-Ho floated in the darkness, looking at the debris field where so many good people had died for no reason except that they had chosen to help others. Something deep inside his mind began to change as he realized that mercy and healing were not enough to protect the innocent from those who chose evil. The young Zephyrian in the pod with him kept repeating that his own people had killed the humans who had saved him, and Jin-Ho began to understand that sometimes the only way to heal a disease was to cut it out completely. 6 months after the massacre, Dr. Jin-Ho Nam sat in a laboratory deep beneath the surface of Luna Station, staring at screens filled with data that would have made weapons engineers sick with fear. The quiet surgeon who had once spent his days healing broken minds had become something else entirely, and the change frightened everyone who knew him. His hands moved across holographic displays with the same precision he had once used to repair damaged brains, but now he was designing ways to destroy them instead. Dr. Youngmi Han stood behind him, watching as he analyzed tissue samples from dead Zephyrian soldiers with the focus of a predator studying its prey. She had worked with Jin-Ho for 8 years before the attack on the Healing Dawn and remembered when he used to smile and tell jokes between surgeries. Now he barely spoke except to give orders, and his eyes had become cold like empty space between stars. Youngmi tried to reach the man she used to know by talking about their old patients or memories from better times, but Jin-Ho only responded with technical questions about alien biology and weapons development. The transformation scared her because she could see that his brilliant mind was still there, but it had been twisted into something dark and dangerous by what he had witnessed in that escape pod. The laboratory was officially registered as a medical research facility working on new treatments for alien diseases, but young Mi knew the truth was much more terrible. Jin-Ho had been given unlimited resources by the Human Defense Council, who wanted to understand how one of their best doctors had become interested in developing biological weapons. They hoped he was just working through his trauma and would return to normal medicine, but young Mi could see that he was moving further away from healing with each passing day. Jin-Ho had spent months studying every piece of information available about Zephyrian biology and had discovered that their immune systems had several weaknesses that could be exploited. He worked 18 hours every day creating pathogens that would target specific genetic markers found only in Zephyrian DNA while leaving other species completely unharmed. The precision required for this kind of biological engineering was incredible, and only someone with Jin-Ho medical knowledge could have achieved it. Admiral Bo-Ram Jang came to visit the laboratory because she had heard disturbing reports about what the famous doctor was creating in his underground facility. Bo-Ram had commanded space fleets for 20 years and thought she understood all the different types of weapons that could be used in warfare, but what Jin-Ho showed her was beyond anything she had ever imagined. The biological agents he had developed were so sophisticated that they made nuclear weapons look primitive by comparison. Jin-Ho explained his work to the Admiral with the same clinical detachment he had once used to describe surgical procedures to medical students. The pathogens were designed to attack the nervous system of Zephyrian soldiers and would spread through their ships faster than any known disease. More importantly, they were programmed to burn themselves out after exactly 72 hours, leaving no trace in the environment and no risk to other species. Admiral Jang stared at the small containers that held enough biological material to kill millions of Zephyrian soldiers and asked Jin-Ho if he understood what he was proposing to do. Jin-Ho looked at her with eyes that showed no emotion and explained that he was simply applying the same logical thinking he had always used in medicine. But now his patient was the entire galaxy, and the disease he needed to cure was the Zephyrian Empire. The Admiral tried to make Jin-Ho understand that using biological weapons would make humans no better than the aliens who had destroyed the hospital ship, but he disagreed completely. He pointed out that his weapons were designed to be precise and limited, while the Zephyrians had chosen to murder helpless patients and medical staff who were protected by every law of civilized warfare. Jin-Ho believed that showing mercy to those who attacked healers would only encourage more attacks on innocent people. Young Mai watched the conversation between Jin-Ho and Admiral Jang and realized that her old friend had developed a completely new philosophy about the nature of good and evil. He no longer believed that healing and helping others was always the right choice because he had seen what happened when evil people were allowed to act without consequences. In his mind, the galaxy was sick with a disease called cruelty, and the only cure was to remove the source of infection permanently. Jin-Ho had also been studying the military tactics used by the Zephyrian Empire and had discovered that they always targeted medical facilities first when attacking enemy positions. This pattern showed that they deliberately chose to violate the laws of war as a way to demoralize their opponents and force quick surrenders. Jin-Ho realized that this behavior was actually a weakness that could be turned against them if someone was smart enough to set the right kind of trap. The breakthrough came when Jin-Ho understood that the Zephyrians made strategic decisions based on their belief that other species would always choose mercy over justice. They attacked hospitals and refugee ships because they expected their enemies to respond with anger instead of calculated planning. Jin-Ho knew that humans were different because they could feel emotions like rage and sadness while still thinking clearly about long-term consequences. Admiral Jang left the laboratory feeling disturbed by what she had learned, but also impressed by the scope of Jin-Ho planning and preparation. She realized that the quiet doctor had become a strategic genius who understood both the science of biological warfare and the psychology of their enemies. His weapons were terrible, but his real strength was his ability to think several steps ahead of anyone who might try to stop him. Jin-Ho began recruiting other scientists and military specialists to help with his project, but he was very careful about who he allowed to join his team. He needed people who had been personally affected by Zephyrian attacks and who would not hesitate to use extreme methods to protect innocent lives. Each new team member had to prove their commitment by working on increasingly dangerous aspects of the biological weapons program. Dr. Hei-Wan Kang joined the team after losing her entire family when Zephyrian forces bombed a civilian evacuation center on her home planet. She had been a peace activist before the war and had always believed that conflicts could be resolved through negotiation and compromise. The death of her husband and 3 children had changed her mind completely, and now she wanted to help Jin Ho develop ways to make the Empire pay for their crimes against humanity. Commander Dong-hyun Park came to the laboratory from the Special Forces Division, where he had been planning raids against Zephyrian military targets. Dong-hyun was an expert in tactics and strategy, but he was frustrated by the limitations placed on human forces by their own moral codes. Working with Jin Ho gave him the chance to fight the enemy using methods that matched their level of ruthlessness, while still maintaining some ethical boundaries. The team worked together for months, developing not just biological weapons, but also delivery systems and strategic plans for using them effectively. Jin Ho insisted that every aspect of their work be designed to minimize harm to innocent people, while maximizing the psychological impact on enemy forces. He wanted the Zephyrians to understand that attacking human medical facilities would result in consequences they could never have imagined. Youngmi gradually came to understand that Jin Ho had not become evil, but had instead evolved into something unprecedented in human history. He was a healer who had learned to think like a virus in order to cure a disease that threatened the entire galaxy. His biological weapons were not tools of destruction, but instruments of surgical precision designed to remove a cancer from the body of civilization. The final test of Jin Ho's new philosophy came when intelligence reports indicated that a Zephyrian battle group was planning to attack another human medical facility in the Vega system. Jin Ho saw this as the perfect opportunity to demonstrate what happened when someone chose to target healers and began preparing a trap that would use the enemy-owned tactics against them. He knew that the Zephyrians would expect the humans to respond with grief and anger, but instead they would encounter the calculated fury of a surgeon who had learned to cut with perfect precision. Jin Ho stood in his laboratory, looking at the weapons he had created, and felt no guilt or hesitation about what he was planning to do. The young Zephyrian soldier he had saved on the Healing Dawn had died anyway when his own people refused to treat him after learning that he had been helped by human doctors. That final cruelty had convinced Jin Ho that some enemies could only be defeated by showing them a level of strategic thinking they could never match. He was ready to teach the galaxy what it meant to attack those who had chosen to heal instead of harm. Dr. Jin Ho Nam's plan began to unfold across human space like a carefully planned surgery where every cut served a specific purpose in healing a larger wound. Working closely with Admiral Bo-Ram Jang, he established a network of medical research stations that appeared to be developing new healing technologies, but were actually manufacturing and deploying his biological weapons. Each facility was staffed by doctors and scientists who had lost friends or family members to Zephyrian attacks and understood the necessity of what they were doing. The first station was built in orbit around New Seoul, where Dr. Hei-Wan Kang supervised the production of airborne pathogens that could be released into enemy ships without harming other species. Hei-Wan had become one of Jin Ho's most trusted assistants because she understood that sometimes peace required the complete defeat of those who chose war over negotiation. Her facility looked exactly like a medical research center and even treated real patients to maintain the illusion that it was engaged in legitimate healing work. Commander Dong-hyun Park established the Tactical Operations Center on Luna Station, where he coordinated intelligence gathering and strategic planning with military units throughout human space. Dong-hyun had recruited a team of special forces, operators who specialized in infiltration and sabotage, but their new mission was to deliver biological weapons instead of explosives. The precision required for this kind of warfare was much greater than traditional military operations because the timing had to be perfect to achieve maximum psychological impact. Jin Ho knew that his weapons would only be effective if they were used as part of a larger strategy designed to change the way the entire galaxy thought about attacking medical facilities. He needed to demonstrate that humans possessed the capability to destroy their enemies completely, but chose restraint instead of annihilation. This message could only be delivered through actions that showed both overwhelming power and moral superiority at the same time. The opportunity came when Zephyrian forces attacked the human colony of New Busan in what appeared to be a routine military operation designed to capture strategic resources. Intelligence reports indicated that Admiral Kextar himself was commanding the assault, and that his forces had been ordered to target the medical facilities first as part of their standard tactical doctrine. Jinho realized that this was the perfect chance to spring his trap and teach the galaxy what happened when someone chose to attack healers. New Busan had a population of 2 million humans, along with several 100,000 alien refugees who had fled from other worlds conquered by the Empire. The Colony Medical Center was one of the largest hospital complexes in the outer systems and treated patients from dozens of different species. Jinho knew that the Zephyrians would see this facility as a high-value target because destroying it would demoralize the entire population and force a quick surrender. Dr. Sojin Lee was placed in charge of the New Busan Medical Center with secret orders to prepare for the implementation of Jinho biological weapons when the attack began. Sojin had survived the destruction of the Healing Dawn and understood better than anyone what the Zephyrians were capable of doing to innocent people. She worked with local medical staff to prepare emergency protocols that would protect patients while ensuring that enemy forces would be exposed to the pathogens. The Zephyrian fleet arrived at New Busan exactly as predicted and immediately began targeting civilian infrastructure including hospitals, schools, and refugee centers. Admiral Kextar commanded the assault from his flagship and sent ground troops to capture the main medical complex where thousands of wounded humans and aliens were being treated. The alien soldiers moved through the hospital corridors expecting to find frightened doctors and helpless patients, but instead they walked into Jinho's carefully prepared trap. The airborne pathogen was released the moment Zephyrian troops entered the medical facility and began affecting their nervous systems within minutes. The biological agent was designed to cause temporary paralysis and unconsciousness rather than death because Jinho wanted the enemy soldiers to survive long enough to understand what had happened to them. As the aliens collapsed throughout the hospital, human medical staff began treating them exactly as they would treat any other patients. Captain Subin Lee commanded the human defense fleet protecting New Busan and watched in amazement as the Zephyrian ground assault collapsed without any conventional fighting. Her ships had been prepared for a desperate battle against superior enemy forces, but instead the aliens simply stopped attacking and began falling unconscious all over the colony. Subin contacted Jinho to ask what was happening and received an explanation that changed her understanding of human strategic capabilities forever. Jinho explained that the pathogen affecting the Zephyrian soldiers was completely harmless to other species and would wear off naturally after 72 hours, leaving no permanent damage. More importantly, every alien who had been exposed to the biological agent was now being treated by human doctors who were working to keep them alive and healthy during their unconsciousness. When the enemy soldiers woke up, they would find themselves in hospital beds being cared for by the same people they had come to kill. The psychological impact of this reversal was exactly what Jinho had planned, because it demonstrated that humans could have killed every member of the attacking force, but chose mercy instead. The message would spread through the Zephyrian military faster than any virus, and would force them to reconsider their tactics of targeting medical facilities. Jinho knew that showing restraint when they possessed overwhelming power would be more effective than any conventional military victory. Admiral Kextar woke up 3 days later in a human hospital bed, with Dr. Sojin Lee checking his vital signs and ensuring that he was recovering properly from the biological agent. The Admiral tried to understand how his superior military force had been defeated so completely without any of his soldiers being killed or even seriously injured. Sojin explained that human medicine was advanced enough to incapacitate enemy forces without causing permanent harm, but that this mercy was a choice rather than a limitation. Word of what happened at New Busan spread throughout the galaxy within days and caused massive changes in military thinking among all the major powers. The Zephyrian High Command realized that they had been fighting an enemy who possessed biological weapons sophisticated enough to target specific species while leaving others unharmed. More disturbing was the realization that humans had chosen to demonstrate their capabilities through an act of mercy rather than a massacre. Jinho watched the reports coming in from across the galaxy and felt satisfied that his strategy was working exactly as planned. The biological weapons had proven their effectiveness, but the real victory was psychological, because every species now understood that attacking human medical facilities would result in consequences they could not predict or defend against. The message was clear that humans would respond to attacks on healers with surgical precision rather than mindless revenge. Dr. Young Mi Han finally began to understand what Jin Ho had become during his months of planning and preparation. He was not a monster who wanted to destroy his enemies, but a strategic genius who had learned to think like a surgeon operating on the entire galaxy. His biological weapons were tools for removing the cancer of cruelty, and his demonstrations of restraint were designed to heal the relationships between different species. The success at New Busan convinced Admiral Zhang that Jin Ho methods were not only effective but necessary for protecting innocent lives throughout human space. She authorized the expansion of his biological weapons program and gave him access to intelligence networks that would allow him to track Zephyrian fleet movements across the galaxy. Jin Ho knew that his next target would be Admiral Kextar and the 7th Fleet that had destroyed the Healing Dawn 6 months earlier. Analyst Mi-Young Cho worked with military intelligence to identify the exact location and composition of the fleet that had committed the original war crime against the hospital ship. Mi-Young had lost her brother in the attack and wanted to help Jin Ho demonstrate that humans never forgot those who chose to harm healers. The information she gathered would allow Jin Ho to plan a trap so sophisticated that it would become a legend told throughout the galaxy for generations. Jin Ho began preparing for his final confrontation with the forces that had started his transformation from healer to strategic mastermind. He knew that Admiral Kextar represented everything that was wrong with the Zephyrian military philosophy, and that defeating him would send a message powerful enough to change the course of the entire war. The surgeon, who had once saved lives by repairing damaged brains, was now ready to save the galaxy by demonstrating the power of human restraint combined with overwhelming capability. The trap would be set in the Vega system, where Jin Ho planned to establish what appeared to be the largest humanitarian medical station in the galaxy. He knew that Admiral Kextar would not be able to resist the opportunity to destroy another symbol of human compassion, and that his attack would give Jin Ho the chance to demonstrate what happened when someone made the mistake of threatening those who had chosen to heal instead of harm. The medical station in the Vega system grew larger each day as thousands of construction workers and medical staff arrived to build what appeared to be the most advanced healing facility in the galaxy. Director In-Ho Bei supervised the project, while secretly coordinating with Jin Ho Nam to ensure that every aspect of the station served a dual purpose as both a genuine medical center and an elaborate trap for Admiral Kextar and his 7th Fleet. The station was designed by engineer Kyung-Soo Oh, who had spent months studying Zephyrian military tactics and developing defensive systems that would appear to violate the basic laws of physics. Kyung-Soo had lost his wife and daughter when their transport ship was destroyed by Zephyrian raiders, and he wanted to help Jin Ho demonstrate that humans could build things their enemies could never understand or defeat. The medical station looked peaceful and harmless, but it contained technology that would redefine what was possible in space warfare. Jin Ho worked 18 hours every day, analyzing tissue samples and genetic data from every member of Admiral Kextar crew that had been collected during previous battles and prisoner exchanges. His biological weapons were now sophisticated enough to target specific individuals based on their unique DNA patterns, which meant he could disable key personnel while leaving the rest of the crew unharmed. This level of precision required months of preparation, but would allow him to demonstrate surgical accuracy that went beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. Dr. Yoon-ji Song supervised the biochemical warfare laboratory, hidden deep inside the medical station, where teams of scientists worked to produce pathogens tailored to individual Zephyrian officers. Yoon-ji had been studying alien biology for 15 years and understood how to modify biological agents so they would affect specific genetic markers while leaving similar species completely unharmed. Her work represented the pinnacle of medical science turned toward military purposes, but guided by ethical principles that limited its destructive potential. The medical station began treating real patients from dozens of different species to maintain the illusion that it was nothing more than an advanced hospital facility. Refugees fleeing from war zones throughout the galaxy arrived daily seeking treatment for injuries and diseases that local medical facilities could not handle. The human doctors and nurses provided genuine care to all these patients while secretly preparing for the confrontation that would determine the future of galactic civilization. Intelligence reports confirmed that Admiral Kextar had received orders from the Zephyrian High Command to destroy the new medical station as part of their ongoing campaign to demoralize human forces by targeting civilian facilities. Analyst Mi Young-cho tracked the movement of the 7th Fleet as it gathered additional ships and prepared for what the Admiral believed would be another easy victory against helpless medical personnel. Mi Young knew that Kextar was walking into a trap that would teach him the true meaning of human strategic thinking. Jin-ho had spent months studying every detail of Admiral Kextar's military record and psychological profile to understand exactly how the alien commander made decisions during combat situations. The Admiral was known for his arrogance and his belief that humans were too weak and emotional to be effective warriors. Jin-ho planned to use this overconfidence against him by demonstrating capabilities that would force the Admiral to reconsider everything he thought he knew about human nature. The 7th Fleet arrived at the Vega system with 47 ships, including the flagship Dark Victory, where Admiral Kextar commanded his forces with the same ruthless confidence he had shown when destroying the Healing Dawn. The Admiral sent a message to the medical station demanding immediate surrender and threatening to kill every person aboard if his orders were not followed within 1 hour. He expected the humans to respond with fear and desperate pleas for mercy, just as they had done 6 months earlier. Director Bay responded to the Zephyrian ultimatum by broadcasting a message on all emergency frequencies explaining that the medical station was treating over 50,000 patients from 30 different species, including several hundred Zephyrian prisoners of war who had been captured in recent battles. He provided complete documentation showing that attacking the facility would violate every law of civilized warfare and would result in the deaths of the Admiral's own people who were being treated by human doctors. Admiral Kextar listened to the human message and felt only satisfaction that he would finally finish what he had started when he destroyed the first hospital ship. He ordered his fleet to open fire on the medical station while broadcasting his own message to all ships in the area, explaining that the Zephyrian Empire would show no mercy to humans who interfered with their military operations. The Admiral believed that destroying another medical facility would break human morale and force them to surrender in the war. The first energy blasts from the Zephyrian fleet struck defensive barriers around the medical station that absorbed the attacks completely without showing any damage. Engineer O had developed shield technology based on principles that the Empire scientists did not understand and could not duplicate. The barriers not only protected the station, but also reflected targeting data back to the attacking ships, which caused their weapon systems to malfunction and shut down automatically. Admiral Kextar stared in confusion as his powerful fleet found itself unable to damage what appeared to be a simple medical facility protected by defensive systems that should not have been possible. He ordered his technical officers to analyze the strange barriers, but their instruments could not determine how the human technology was working. For the first time in his military career, the Admiral faced an enemy that possessed capabilities beyond his understanding. Jin-ho watched the battle from the command center of the medical station and felt the cold satisfaction of a surgeon who had made the perfect incision at exactly the right moment. He activated the biological weapons that had been prepared specifically for Admiral Kextar and his senior officers while leaving the rest of the crew unaffected. The pathogens were delivered through microscopic particles that penetrated the Zephyrian ship's life support systems and began affecting their targets within minutes. Dr. Song monitored the progress of the biological agents as they spread through the enemy fleet and caused selective neural paralysis among key personnel. The weapons were designed to affect only the officers who had been present during the attack on the Healing Dawn, while leaving junior crew members and enlisted soldiers completely unharmed. This level of precision demonstrated that humans could target their enemies with surgical accuracy rather than relying on crude weapons of mass destruction. Admiral Kextar felt his body becoming numb and unresponsive as the biological agent reached his nervous system and began shutting down his motor functions. He tried to give orders to his remaining crew, but found that he could not speak or move, even though his mind remained completely clear. Around him, other senior officers were experiencing the same paralysis, while younger crew members continued to function normally, but had no idea what to do without their commanders. The Zephyrian fleet drifted helplessly in space as their command structure collapsed and their weapon systems remained offline due to the defensive barriers around the medical station. Jinho ordered communication channels to be opened so that every ship in the area could hear what he was about to say to Admiral Kextar. The conversation that followed would be studied in military academies throughout the galaxy for centuries, and would change the way every species thought about the true nature of human strategic capabilities. Jinho spoke directly to Admiral Kextar using perfect Zephyrian language and explained exactly what had happened to him and why. He described how the biological weapons had been tailored to affect only those individuals who had participated in the destruction of the Healing Dawn, and how the paralysis would wear off naturally after 72 hours without causing any permanent damage. The precision of the attack demonstrated that humans could have killed the entire fleet, but had chosen restraint instead. The Admiral listened in horror as Jinho explained that every moment of helplessness he was experiencing was identical to what the patients aboard the Healing Dawn had felt when his ships opened fire on their medical facility. The difference was that the human doctor was choosing to let him live so that he could understand what it meant to be completely at the mercy of someone who possessed overwhelming power but preferred healing to destruction. Jinho revealed that the entire confrontation was being broadcast across the galaxy so that every species could witness what happened when someone made the mistake of attacking those who had chosen to heal instead of harm. The demonstration was designed to show that humans possessed weapons sophisticated enough to target individuals based on their genetic patterns, but used this capability to deliver a lesson about mercy rather than to commit genocide. The broadcast continued for hours as Jinho explained his philosophy about the relationship between healing and warfare, while Admiral Kextar remained paralyzed but conscious in his command chair. The human doctor described how his transformation from surgeon to strategic mastermind had been caused by witnessing the destruction of innocent people who had dedicated their lives to helping. The aftermath of the Vega incident sent shockwaves throughout the galaxy as every government and military organization struggled to understand what they had witnessed during Jinho Nam's demonstration of human strategic capabilities. Admiral Kextar and his crew recovered from their paralysis exactly as promised and found themselves being treated by the same human medical staff they had attempted to kill. The psychological impact of this reversal was more devastating than any military defeat because it forced the Zephyrian Empire to confront the reality that their enemies possessed weapons beyond imagination, but chose mercy over annihilation. Ambassador Wu Jin Lim used the incident to broker peace negotiations that would have been impossible before the galaxy witnessed human restraint combined with overwhelming technological superiority. Representatives from dozens of species gathered on the neutral world of Harmony Station to discuss new treaties and agreements based on the understanding that attacking medical facilities would result in consequences no military force could defend against. The negotiations proceeded rapidly because everyone understood that humans had fundamentally changed the rules of warfare through their demonstration of surgical precision and moral authority. Jinho knew that his victory at Vega was only the beginning of a larger transformation that needed to occur throughout galactic civilization. His biological weapons had proven their effectiveness, but the real challenge was ensuring that the lesson about respecting medical neutrality would be permanent rather than temporary. He made a decision that surprised even his closest allies by announcing that he would release all of his research to every species simultaneously, including both the weapons and their countermeasures. Dr. Sung-Hwan Kim had joined Jinho's team as an ethics advisor after the success at New Busan, and he helped develop the framework for what became known as the Nam Doctrine. Sung-Hwan understood that Jinho was creating a new form of deterrence, based on mutual vulnerability rather than mutual destruction. By giving everyone access to both biological weapons and their antidotes, Jinho was ensuring that no species could gain a permanent advantage, while making it clear that attacking healers would result in immediate retaliation. The release of Jinho. Research created a period of intense scientific activity as every major government worked to understand and develop countermeasures for the biological weapons, while also exploring their potential applications. The complexity of the technology meant that only the most advanced civilizations could produce the weapons effectively, but the antidotes were simple enough that even primitive societies could protect themselves. This balance ensured that the powerful could not use biological warfare to dominate the weak. Young Mi-Han finally understood the full scope of what her old friend had accomplished during his transformation from healer to strategic mastermind. Jin-Ho had not become a monster who wanted to destroy his enemies, but had instead evolved into something unprecedented in galactic history. He was a doctor who had diagnosed the disease of cruelty that infected interstellar civilization and had prescribed a cure so radical that it changed the fundamental nature of warfare itself. The Zephyrian High Command underwent a complete restructuring of their military philosophy as they came to terms with the reality that their traditional tactics were not only ineffective against humans, but would result in consequences they could not predict or defend against. Counselor Sora Park served as the human diplomatic attaché to the Empire and reported that Zephyrian military doctrine was being rewritten to emphasize the protection of medical facilities rather than their destruction. Admiral Kextar himself became an unexpected advocate for the new policies after spending weeks recovering in human medical facilities and witnessing the dedication of doctors and nurses who treated him with the same care they provided to their own people. The Admiral, who had once believed that mercy was weakness, came to understand that choosing restraint when you possessed overwhelming power was the ultimate demonstration of strength and wisdom. Jin-Ho appeared before the Galactic Council to explain his philosophy and to formally present what became known as the Nam Doctrine to representatives from every major civilization. He stood at the podium where so many diplomats had failed to find solutions to the ongoing conflicts and spoke with the same calm precision he had once used to explain surgical procedures to medical students. His message was simple but revolutionary, because it redefined the relationship between healing and warfare in ways that would influence galactic politics for generations. The Nam Doctrine established new principles for interstellar conflict based on the understanding that those who chose mercy often possessed the greatest capacity for destruction. Jin-Ho explained that humans had developed biological weapons, sophisticated enough to target specific individuals or entire species, but would only use these capabilities in response to attacks on medical facilities or other violations of civilized warfare. The doctrine created a framework where showing restraint became more terrifying than demonstrating destructive power. Dr. Yonsu Huang was chosen to lead the rebuilt medical corps that would replace the destroyed Healing Dawn with a fleet of hospital ships protected not by weapons, but by the terrible knowledge of what humans were capable of when their healers were threatened. Each new medical vessel carried the same mission of treating all patients regardless of species or political affiliation, but now operated under the protection of the Nam Doctrine, which made attacking them tantamount to military suicide. The transformation of galactic civilization proceeded more rapidly than anyone had expected as species after species adopted policies designed to protect medical neutrality and prevent the kind of war crimes that had triggered Jin-Ho transformation. Medical facilities throughout the galaxy began operating integrated programs where former enemies worked together to treat patients and develop new healing technologies. The cooperation between different species created scientific advances that would have been impossible during the previous era of constant warfare. Jin-Ho gradually returned to practicing medicine, but his reputation as the surgeon who had healed an entire galaxy followed him wherever he went. Patients from dozens of different species requested treatment from the doctor who had demonstrated that humans could choose mercy even when they possessed the power to destroy their enemies completely. Jin-Ho found satisfaction in returning to his original calling, but he remained vigilant for any signs that the lessons of Vega were being forgotten. The hospital ships of the new medical fleet became symbols of hope throughout the galaxy as they traveled from system to system providing treatment to anyone who needed help. Each vessel carried both human and alien medical staff working together under the protection of the Nam Doctrine, which ensured that attacking a hospital ship would result in immediate and overwhelming retaliation. The knowledge that humans possessed biological weapons capable of targeting specific genetic markers made the threat credible, and the demonstration of restraint at Vega made it clear that retaliation would be precisely calibrated rather than genocidal. Years passed, and the galaxy entered a period of unprecedented peace as the various species came to understand that cooperation was more beneficial than conflict. The Nam Doctrine became the foundation of interstellar law and was taught in military academies throughout civilized space as an example of how superior strategy could achieve better results than superior firepower. Young officers learned that showing mercy when you possessed overwhelming power was more effective than using that power to destroy your enemies. Jin-Ho continued his medical practice while serving as an advisor to the Galactic Medical Council. which had been established to coordinate humanitarian efforts between different species. He worked alongside former Zephyrian enemies who had once sought to destroy human medical facilities, but now understood that healers deserved protection rather than persecution. The integration of different species in medical facilities created opportunities for scientific collaboration that advanced the knowledge and capabilities of everyone involved. The legacy of the Healing Dawn lived on through the thousands of hospital ships that now carried the mission of treating all patients regardless of their origin or political affiliation. Each vessel served as a reminder that humans had chosen to respond to the destruction of their medical facilities not with revenge, but with a demonstration of restraint so overwhelming that it rendered traditional warfare obsolete. The galaxy had learned that those who dedicated their lives to healing others deserved respect and protection from everyone. In the final years of his career, Jin-Ho often reflected on the transformation he had undergone from a simple surgeon to the architect of galactic peace. He had diagnosed the disease of cruelty that infected interstellar civilization and had prescribed a cure based on the understanding that mercy combined with overwhelming capability was more powerful than any weapon ever created. The galaxy was healthier because he had learned to think like a virus in order to eliminate the infections that caused unnecessary suffering and death. The story of the doctor who changed the fate of the galaxy became a legend told throughout space as an example of how one person's dedication to healing could transform an entire civilization.